Clinton campaign manager Robbie Mook and the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, Devin Nunes. But first, we want to get the latest on the FBI investigation from Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge. Catherine.
Chris, a law enforcement source tells Fox News that thousands of records are involved. The New York FBI team assessed them as relevant, telling their colleagues on the Clinton email case, quote, "We think we've come across some documents pertinent to your investigation." Clinton wants the evidence public, which is not standard in ongoing cases.
Voters deserve to get full and complete facts. And so we've called on Director Comey to explain everything right away, put it all out on the table.
A source close to the FBI probe could not recall issuing a subpoena for Abedin's records, adding they did not believe the device shared by Abedin and Weiner was searched by agents. Abedin told the FBI in April that she sent State Department emails, including this one from Clinton, to her personal Yahoo account where it was easier to print. In June, Abedin swore under oath in a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit that she looked through all her devices that could hold government emails. On Thursday, FBI Director James Comey was briefed on the findings, and that same day he decided to reinitiate the email case and notify Congress. The director's decision is described to Fox News as driven by the sheer volume of records and the commitment he made under oath.
Would you reopen the Clinton investigation if you discovered new information that was both relevant and substantial?
It's hard for me to answer in the abstract. We would certainly look at any new and substantial information.
In his memo to employees, Comey said they don't know if the emails are significant. But former FBI agents said anything suggesting intent, lying to investigators, obstruction of justice, or sharing classified information with a foreign entity would warrant such a move. The director notified the Attorney General of his decision, which the Justice Department did not support, and there's no expectation that a review can be complete before Election Day, Chris.
Catherine, thank you. Joining me now live here in studio, the Republican vice presidential nominee, Indiana Governor Mike Pence. Governor, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Thank you, Chris.
What is your reaction to the FBI reopening the Clinton case?
Well, we commend the director of the FBI and the FBI for following through on their work before the Congress, that if there was new, pertinent information sufficient to reopen this investigation, that they would inform Congress of that fact and they would move forward. Look, this is clearly a very serious matter, and we respect the institution of the FBI and are confident that they'll handle this in a professional and a timely way.
But FBI officials note that they are just starting to look at these emails. They don't know whether any of them are classified. They don't even know whether they may be duplicates of emails that they've already seen in the investigation. So shouldn't you and Mr. Trump be cautious in talking about how significant this is? Well,
I think we have been cautious, but the simple fact is that the decision by the FBI this summer was incomprehensible to millions of Americans. I mean, the director of the FBI literally called a press conference in which he chronicled one violation of the law after the other, and then announced that he was not going to pursue charges or recommend charges against Hillary Clinton in this case. And then 2 days later, he literally undercut that decision by going before the Congress and saying in so many ways that Hillary Clinton had misrepresented the facts. You remember that famous dialogue between Trey Gowdy and the director of the FBI, where he said that Hillary Clinton said that nothing marked classified was on her emails. Was that true? The director said it was not true. She had never sent classified emails. That was not true. So I think what we already know here is troubling to the American people, and it's convincing millions of Americans that Hillary Clinton is just a risky choice in this election. And I think that's why since Friday you see more momentum, but frankly there was enormous momentum in our campaign before Friday because the American people are focusing on the choice in this election.
You say she's a risky choice. How does this alter the campaign's message in what is now just 9 days? How do you use this to raise new questions and change voters' minds?
Well, I don't think it alters the campaign at all. I mean, we had tremendous momentum in this campaign before this announcement came.
But I'm talking about the message.
Well, the message is very, very, very simple, that the American people have been troubled about the fact that Hillary Clinton continues to refuse to turn over some 33,000 emails. But beyond that, it's Hillary Clinton's record as Secretary of State. that weakened America's place in the world. It's her desire to continue the failed economic policies of this administration that have literally stifled the American economy. The news on Monday that Obamacare premiums are about to go up 25% next year all across the country on average is deeply troubling to the American people, and Hillary Clinton's commitment, as she said to you in that presidential debate, to have people on the Supreme Court that represent a particular viewpoint as opposed to people on the court who will strictly construe and uphold the Constitution. That's our message. That's why people are rallying around Donald Trump, and I think it's why you see the polls closing so dramatically.
I want to get back to this question of the FBI announcement. Because the fact is, as you try to press your case in these final 9 days, your campaign has a big money problem, and I want to put it up on the screen. As of October 20th, the last filing date, the Clinton campaign had $62 million cash on hand. The Trump campaign had just $16 million, with Trump donating only $31,000 in the first half of the month. Now, Trump announced Friday that he's kicking in another $10 million, but you're still way behind, and Trump is way short, a third short of the $100 million that he had committed or promised he was going to commit to the campaign. The question is, has he told you that he's going to put a lot more money in this campaign in this last week now that you have this new revelation?
Well, I think, I'm grateful for the extraordinary generosity that Donald Trump and his family have continued to show to this campaign. And
but has he told you he's going to put more money in?
He's made it clear we'll have the resources we need to drive our message. But look, from the outset of this campaign, Hillary Clinton has had most of the media, the money, and the special interests on her side. But Donald Trump has made a connection with millions of Americans because he's talking about making America stronger, making America more prosperous. And the remarkable thing is, against this avalanche of paid advertising in states around the country, you still see tremendous momentum in this campaign. And it's really important to say, Chris, before Friday's announcement, literally, you saw tremendous momentum as people are coming to the polls.
Here's the problem.
We're seeing absentee ballots in key states.
But Governor, here's the problem. One of the big concerns that a lot of voters have about Donald Trump is his temperament. I just want to show how dramatically he changed his mind about the FBI and Comey in just a few hours on Friday. Here he is.
The FBI rolled over, and the Department of Justice rolled over.
I have great respect for the FBI for righting this wrong.
For weeks, Trump has been saying that the election is rigged. Now, in the course of a couple of hours on Friday, he says, well, maybe it's not as rigged as I thought it was. Is that presidential?
Well, I think what you see here is an example of real leadership. I mean, Donald Trump.
Wait. How's that leadership to say? In other words, the argument, sir, the argument that you could make is Comey, whether you liked it or not, made a good faith decision last July. He made a good faith decision on Friday, and neither of those show it's rigged. But Trump was ascribing the worst possible motives to it.
Oh, that's because we thought the investigation should never have been closed, Chris. And Donald Trump, the reason why he's people all across this country, the reason why you see the momentum in this campaign is because people find in Donald Trump someone that just speaks his mind straight from, it tells people exactly where he stands. And it was just incomprehensible this summer when the director of the FBI came out and he literally indicted Hillary Clinton in the press and then said, we're not recommending that she be indicted. When anyone in the service, you've got General Cartwright and others, people have done a fraction of the number of things that Hillary Clinton has done in the mishandling of classified information have been prosecuted. And frankly, as I said in my vice presidential debate, if my son or Tim Kaine's son had mishandled classified information the way that Hillary Clinton had and the FBI said she had, they would at least have been court-martialed. It was incomprehensible. Donald Trump continued to make that case. But now with new information, I think we all want to recognize that the FBI stepping forward at this moment has demonstrated real integrity to keep their word to Republicans and Democrats in the Congress and say we have found what's being described now as a volume of information, of new information, and that we have reopened the investigation. And it's important that they told the Congress that before this election. We're confident that they'll work through that in a professional and timely way.
But you said, Governor, that Trump, and one of his strengths, you say, is that he speaks his mind. You got a lot of ammunition going into this final week. You've got this new investigation by the FBI, or at least its review of the emails. You've got the WikiLeaks and the revelations about the Clinton Foundation. You've got the Obamacare premium spike that you've just mentioned. But Trump gets so easily sidetracked. In this same week, he was threatening to sue NBC for releasing the Access Hollywood tape. He was threatening to sue the women who had accused him. What do you say to voters who may worry that Hillary Clinton is corrupt, but worry whether or not Donald Trump is competent?
Well, I think people look at the totality of this campaign. They look at the agenda we're running on. They look at the totality of a career of a man who has built an extraordinary business, and they know they're looking at a leader in Donald Trump. And Donald Trump has an agenda. Our contract with the American voter, people can go online and read it. And in the first 100 days after we not only elect the Trump-Pence team, but we re-elect Republican majorities in the Congress, we're going to turn this country around. We're going to rebuild our military. We're going to revive our economy through tax relief, repealing Obamacare, better and smarter and tougher trade deals, and we're going to appoint members to the Supreme Court who will strictly construe the Constitution in the tradition of the late and great Justice Antonin Scalia. That, along with the backdrop of all the the politics of personal enrichment that has been at the very center of 30 years of the Clintons in public life, the American people want to see come to an end. Governor,
as I said in the debate, your time is up, but thank you very much. Governor, thank you, and especially thank you for coming here to Washington to visit with us. Now we want to turn to the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, Congressman Devin Nunes of California. Mr. Chairman, the Clinton campaign is suggesting that the emails that the FBI has found may just be duplicates of ones that they've already seen. I want to play for you an exchange that Director Comey had in a congressional hearing last month when some Republicans were complaining about the fact that he had closed the case and there were a bunch of new developments. Here it is.
Would that not require a reopening of the investigation to solve those issues?
I haven't seen anything that would come near to that kind of situation.
Chairman, do you think it's likely that Director Comey reopen this investigation with just 11 days to go before the election with no idea what's in the emails and whether or not this is a substantial development or not?
To me, Chris, this has to be a substantial development. I just don't see Director Comey opening this case back up 11 days before the election unless it is quite serious. Now, look, there's a lot of different scenarios here that are possible. Is it possible that maybe some of these emails are part of the 33,000 that are missing? Is it possible there are communications between Huma Abedin and her husband, the former congressman? There are a lot of scenarios that are possible here, but I think after the several meetings that the Congress had with Director Comey, he was quite clear that the investigation was done and that he would only open it if there was significant information. And my guess is there must be something significant.
These emails were apparently on a laptop that was shared by Huma Abedin and her estranged husband, Anthony Weiner. As chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, does it concern you that Anthony Weiner apparently had access to what may have been classified information?
Well, it's the job of the House Intelligence Committee and part of the legislative branch to provide oversight over the executive branch to ensure, first and foremost, that classified information remains classified. And that's why, I just can't believe that, we've called on Director Clapper to investigate this, to possibly pool these more classified information getting out. Should Hillary Clinton's staff be given classified briefings at this point? I think it is a question that needs to be answered. Now, look, at the end of the day, we don't want to speculate here, but it is our job to make sure that this information remains classified.
You brought up the Director of National Intelligence, General Clapper. You have said more than that. You have said that you believe he should ensure, the Director of National Intelligence, that Hillary Clinton never gets access again to classified briefings and classified material. You're talking about the person who in just over a week could be our president-elect.
That is right, because we are a separate branch of government. And I believe that the information that it's just not believable that Secretary Clinton, with all of her experience, decades of experience, decades of receiving classified information, would not have known that she was looking at, analyzing, communicating in classified information over an unsecured network. It's not believable. Now, if you go back to what Director Comey said, he gave a pretty strong indictment back in July, but what he really said was, look, she should have known, she was reckless. He just didn't have enough information to indict her on this.
The word out of the FBI is that this investigation, and I think from all of our sense of the kind of metabolism, if you will, of the FBI, will not be concluded by Election Day. Would it be fair to say that if Clinton wins and if Republicans hold on to the House, you continue to be the chair of House Intelligence, for instance, that there will be investigations, more investigations of the woman who could be our president-elect?
Well, we will clearly investigate all of the information that we have as it relates to classified information being put on unclassified networks where Russians, Chinese, other bad actors could get a hold of the information. And look, I know this is a little bit rhetoric. That
Chairman?
Well, look, I know that this is rhetoric, but this is Hillary Clinton's fault. This is Hillary Clinton who set up a private server. This is not House Republicans. And on Friday night, Secretary Clinton holds a press conference in Iowa, and basically she attacks Director Comey, which is ridiculous. And then she goes and during the Q&A portion, she says that some letter was sent by the director of FBI to House Republicans. Now look, she knows better. She was a United States Senator. She was a First Lady. She was Secretary of State. She knows good and well that Republicans and Democrats, the chairman and the chairman of House Intelligence and the House and Senate and ranking members were all notified of this information. So just Friday night is another concern of mine. I mean, she knows the game. She knows what's going on here.
Chairman Nunes, we want to thank you. Thank you for your time today. Always good to talk with you, sir. Up next, Hillary Clinton tells the FBI, get all the facts out. We'll talk with her campaign manager, Robbie Mook, when we come right back. A look outside the Beltway at St. Anselm College in Manchester, New Hampshire, where Hillary Clinton campaigned this week. Joining me now from Clinton headquarters in Brooklyn, New York, to discuss Friday's shocker is Clinton campaign manager Robbie Mook. Robbie, what's your reaction to FBI Director Comey's announcement, and why do you think he did it?
Chris, well, thanks for having me. We were very surprised by this letter, and what we're asking at this point is that Director Comey just get all the information out on the table, all of it, so that the American people can judge for themselves. This issue was vetted through for months. Director Comey came to a conclusion. We believe that voters have already made up their minds on this issue, so we find it very strange that 10 days out that he's putting this letter out there. And we discovered last night from Yahoo News that he and the Justice Department may not have a warrant to look at these messages. So we just want all the information out there.
Why do you think he did it?
I don't know, and this is the problem, Chris, is that, this letter was put out there. We have no information whatsoever about what might be in those emails. And again, according to Yahoo News, it appears that he may not have seen any of these emails at all. So we think he has a responsibility to the American people to get the information out there so they can judge for themselves.
Well, you talk about the responsibility of the American people to get all the information out. There is someone who knows what's in all those emails, and that is Huma Abedin. Has Secretary Clinton asked her what's in those emails?
Well, Chris, the problem with what you're just saying there is we don't know. We don't know where these emails are from. You're making an inference that it could have been Huma Abedin. Your guess is as good as anyone. And this is why Director Comey needs to get all the information out there.
I'm asking you a direct question. Has Secretary Clinton asked Huma Abedin what was on that laptop that she shared with her husband, Anthony Weiner?
She hasn't, because you just offered a hypothetical on the table. Let me offer you some hypotheticals that I've read in the press. I've heard a hypothetical that these emails had nothing to do with Hillary Clinton whatsoever, that she didn't send or receive
But that
that
doesn't matter. It's still the question of what's in the emails. So why wouldn't she ask Huma Abedin, did you have emails on the laptop and what's in them? And why wouldn't she ask her?
Well, Chris, you and I are on the same page here. I want to know what's in these emails, too. And Director Comey has put out a letter. It has 3 paragraphs. It says nothing about Huma Abedin. It says nothing about who these emails were to or from. He just said he has information that may be significant. We don't even know if it is. And you showed some of his testimony to Congress just now, where they asked if there's significant information, would you reopen the case? And he said, yes, we will take a look at it. The problem is, we learned from Yahoo News last night, we don't even think he's taken a look at any of this.
But again,
we don't know if anybody has.
There is at least there is credible reporting out there that this came from the laptop of Anthony Weiner and Huma Abedin. Why on earth wouldn't Hillary Clinton say to her closest personal aide, was there any stuff on that on your laptop, and what was it?
Chris, again, I appreciate your question because people want answers. There's nothing about Huma Abedin in the letter that was sent out.
I know that, but why wouldn't Clinton ask her?
Well, why wouldn't Clinton ask anybody? They could be emails from anybody in the world.
But there are no reports that it's anybody else except Huma Abedin.
Again, you're putting out some hypotheticals. There are other hypotheticals that have been put out there. For example,
on the front page of every paper in America, including, I suspect, although I haven't read it, Yahoo News.
Well, and again, I appreciate what you're asking because everybody wants to have the answer, and there's a person who can answer this question, and that's Director Comey. He should put out more information, get everything on the table. He release the information itself, at least provide more detail about what he's talking about. But 10 days out from an election, that he's come under intense criticism from former Justice Department officials who've said this is entirely a breach of protocol. There is a standard that 6 weeks from an election, you don't put out insinuations like this, and all that's in that letter is innuendo.
Okay,
we have no details whatsoever.
Robbie, I want to move on, and I want to ask you about Secretary Clinton's reaction. Here's part of what she said on Friday night.
If they're going to be sending this kind of letter that is only going originally to Republican members of the House, that they need to share whatever facts they claim to have with the American people.
Robbie, why would she say something that is so flatly untrue? I have a copy here. It's not very long. It's the letter that Comey sent to Congress. On the front page, it's got the 8 Republican chairmen of the committees. If you just turn it over, next page, you got the 8 top Democrats on the committee. Why would she say that it was just sent to the Republicans when, in fact, it was sent to the Republicans and Democrats?
You know, Chris, this has been really overhyped.
Well, she said it. I didn't.
We were all surprised by this letter. She looked at the front page, and as you just said yourself, on the front page of that memo, it lists those Republican chairs. Were the Democrats CC'd at the end of the letter? Absolutely. She looked at the front page of the letter. She has acknowledged, we all acknowledge, this was sent to everybody. Again, what we're concerned and disturbed by is that Director Comey sent a letter saying, we have some information. I don't know if it's significant. I don't know if it isn't. He didn't say where it came from. He didn't say what it was about. He didn't even say whether these emails were sent or received by Hillary Clinton. And furthermore, another hypothetical that's out there is that these are duplicates that have already been released. We need all the information, and Director
Robbie,
Comey needs to get it out.
I want to make one more point about this letter. You say it's hyped. Comey sent the letter about 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday. Your campaign chairman, John Podesta, put out a statement at 3:45 p.m. in which he's made exactly the same charge, that this letter had been sent just to the Republicans, not to the Democrats. 3 hours and 15 minutes later, Hillary Clinton makes the same charge. This was a talking point of your campaign, and frankly, it was a dishonest talking point.
Chris, if your question is whether Democratic leaders were CC'd on that letter, the answer is absolutely yes. What's disturbing about this, again, is that a 3-paragraph letter with no information whatsoever about what the FBI is talking about was sent to the individuals named on the letter. It took Jason Chaffetz about, 15 seconds to leak that out to the press, and now all your interviews this morning have been full of hypotheticals and conjectures Senators, Director Comey owes it to the American people, releasing this just a matter of days before the election, to provide all the information. That's what we're asking. Just get all of it out there, and the voters can judge for themselves. We think the voters actually want to hear about what these two candidates are going to do to make a difference in their lives, not more relitigating of this email. And we recognize that the director was under tremendous pressure from Donald Trump and Republican leaders.
And now he's under tremendous pressure from your side. The last question I want to ask you is that you're acting as if it was the director who brought this into the election, when the fact is that it was Hillary Clinton who brought this into the election. I want to go back to the email exchange on March 2nd, 2015, when the New York Times broke the story about Hillary Clinton using private emails. We're going to put it up on the screen. Clinton advisor Neera Tanden: why didn't they get this stuff out like 18 months ago? So crazy. Campaign chairman John Podesta: unbelievable. Tanden: I guess I know the answer. They wanted to get away with it. Robbie, it was Clinton who delayed, and it was Clinton who brought this into the presidential campaign.
And it is Secretary Clinton who has said this was a mistake. It is Secretary Clinton who cooperated fully with the investigation. And it was Secretary Clinton who accepted the outcome of that investigation. And what Secretary Clinton is doing now is saying, if there's new information, get it out on the table. Let's get it out. These could be duplicates. Again, it's been reported these emails may not have been sent or received by Secretary Clinton. We don't know anything. And this close to an election, this unprecedented announcement of new information, when again, it's been reported by Yahoo News that the FBI may have not even seen it, that Director Comey sent this unprecedented letter shortly before the election when he doesn't even know what the information is. That's disturbing, and we're just asking him, get everything out there that he knows.
Robbie, thank you. Thanks for joining us today. Always good to talk with you.
Yeah, you as well. Thanks for the opportunity.
Up next, we'll bring in our Sunday group to discuss Director James Comey's stunning announcement. Plus, what would you like to ask the panel about the FBI decision to reopen the Clinton email investigation? Just go to Facebook or Twitter at Fox News Sunday, and we may use your question on the air.
This is a great man. We are very privileged in our country to have him be the director of the FBI.
That is not the FBI that I used to work with.
Well, that was then, when House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi and Republican Congressman Trey Gowdy had sharp reactions to FBI Director Comey recommending no charges against Hillary Clinton. But this is now. And now it's Gowdy who is applauding Comey, while it's Pelosi who is expressing concerns. And it's time for our Sunday group. Syndicated columnist George Will, Charles Lane from the Washington Post, Gerald Saab, Washington bureau chief of the Wall Street Journal, and Washington Examiner contributor Lisa Booth. Well, George, what do you make of Comey's decision to reopen the investigation and to tell Congress about it over the objection of the Justice Department?
Well, it's baffling. The headline coast to coast is FBI has new evidence. There's no evidence whatever yet that there is new evidence pertaining to the email thing, because this is a contentless October surprise at this point. What Mr. Comey said is the emails appear to be pertinent. Well, they can be pertinent without being significant, because they can be redundant in demonstrating extreme recklessness, the category the FBI invented to avoid accusing her of gross negligence, which is a felony. So we perhaps, and we don't know this, perhaps the FBI has already seen these documents. They don't know whether they're duplicative or not. After Mr. Comey has said no reasonable prosecutor could have looked at what they've already looked at and proceeded with a case. Now, the I in the acronym FBI says investigation. The duty of the FBI is to investigate, and when it thinks it has concluded an investigation, to pass its conclusion on to the prosecutorial arm of the Department of Justice, not to write letters to the legislative branch of government. People say, well, this is happening 11 days before the election. No. 17 million votes have already been cast. It's happening in the middle of the voting. And finally, it is said that one of the reasons he rushed to do this, Mr. Comey, is he was afraid of a leak. The FBI can't be trusted not to leak its own investigations. As Chairman Grassley of the Senate Judiciary Committee said with some understatement, the country at this point immediately needs some context for all this.
Well, that raises the question, Jerry, about why Comey did this. As we saw in a couple of exchanges so far earlier in the show, he was being pressed by Republicans to reopen the investigation, and he said, no. First of all, what he'd seen so far, nothing was of that nature. And I think he repeatedly used the word substantial. It had to be something substantial to reopen the investigation. Can you imagine that he does what he does, in effect reopens the investigation, tells Congress about it, he can read the calendar 11 days before the election without any idea what's in here?
Well, that seems to be the case, though. I mean, you know, the assumption in this town right away was that he must have found something big or he wouldn't have done this. And then I think upon reflection, it's not clear the FBI has even seen these emails. There's a court order required to read the emails. There's no indication that has been delivered yet.
But certainly the part of the FBI that was investigating the sexting scandal, and I can't believe that we're talking about this, they must have seen it because they seized the laptop. They've had it for about a month, and he said they came to him with something, so they must have known that there are emails here.
But was the something the existence of the emails or the substance of the emails? That we don't know yet. But I think the point, and more directly to respond to your question, is that I think Director Comey had to be convinced that he was in an impossible situation, that if he didn't say something now and it became clear after the election that something new and potentially significant had arisen, that he hadn't said anything, he would be excoriated for that. Instead, he's being excoriated for this. He's managed to accomplish bipartisanship in Washington. He's gotten everybody mad at it.
We asked you for questions for the panel, and a bunch of you are skeptical about the FBI announcement. We got this on Facebook from Carl Baker. How can these new emails be more damning than those found in the previous investigation? As the FBI has already made it clear that she, Clinton, is untouchable, what's the point of this new investigation? Lisa, how do you answer Carl?
I don't know. I mean, I think we're all operating a lot of hypotheticals here because there isn't a lot of information that is absolute that is out there. All we really know is the letter that FBI Director Comey sent to Congress, as well as the internal memo that he sent to his FBI colleagues. I mean, that's really all the information that we know definitively. But, you know, watching the interview you did with Robbie Mook, I mean, it's very interesting for the Clinton campaign to say that they want the information out there when Hillary Clinton had taken the unprecedented actions of setting up a private server in the first place, deleting tens of thousands of emails, and then stonewalling the process and lying throughout it. And if you look at the Attorney General as well, who's been critical of the FBI and Comey's decision as well, the Attorney General has no moral high ground to stand on either, because she compromised herself in meeting with Bill Clinton and then had to defer to FBI Director Comey entirely throughout this entire thing. And so I think FBI Director Comey is between a rock and a hard place, because what is he supposed to do? He either releases the information now, which is ultimately what he decided to do, or at least release the information, or rather send the letter, or wait until after the election. And then how's that going to go? So I mean, there really isn't a good decision for him to make here, and it's not like he has a lot of cover when Attorney General essentially has laid this entire thing at his feet.
Chuck, there are two, I think it's fair to say, maybe there are more, but two leading theories inside the Beltway right now. One is that Comey is involved in a cover your rear end operation because of all the heat he took when he announced last July that the case was closed, despite his political, not legal, but his political indictment of Clinton. And the other is that there must be something that somebody has read that he thinks is significant enough that he can't ignore it. Where do you come down?
Well, I think they could both be true, actually. And I think that I tend to sort of sympathize with the view that the FBI director was kind of, as Lisa put it, between a rock and a hard place. Either way, he was going to be under a lot of heat. But I think what this speaks to is a broader breakdown in the ordinary institutional processes of our criminal justice system. You are not supposed to be discussing the ongoing investigations publicly. That's just rule one, because that can lead to innuendo, smearing of innocent people. It's closely related to the presumption of innocence in our Constitution. And now things have gotten so screwed up that the target of the investigation, Hillary Clinton, is essentially begging to have the ongoing investigation take place in public. This is related to the mistake Loretta Lynch made by visiting with the former president. She's now out of the game, so no one in the Justice Department can exercise control over the FBI director. They're saying, well, we told him in a meeting this wasn't a good idea. Why didn't they just say, we order you not to do it? I don't understand that. We have complete breakdown. And that's something that ought to, if everybody in this country wasn't worried about whether their party was winning or not, that is what is really so disturbing about this whole thing.
All right, we have to take a break here, but when we come back, we'll turn to the political impact of all this, whether the FBI decision will reshape the race just 9 days before the election.
There is nobody to blame but herself for her mounting legal troubles. Her criminal action was willful, deliberate, intentional, and purposeful.
It's pretty strange to put something like that out with such little information right before an election.
Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump on the campaign trail this weekend in the wake of the FBI announcement. It's found new emails relevant to the Clinton investigation, and we're back now with the panel. And the news is breaking while we're on the air. Our colleague Brett Baer has just sent us an email saying he has two sources who say that Anthony Weiner, who also had co-ownership of that laptop with his estranged wife, Uma Abedin, is cooperating with the FBI investigation, had given them the laptop, so therefore they didn't need a warrant to get and to see the contents of said laptop. Pretty interesting development. Let's talk about the politics of all this, because we actually have an election in 9 days. Jerry, there was, I think it's fair to say, a growing sense that Hillary Clinton was leading in this election and probably going to win it. But now that's called into question. I want to put up a new ABC News Washington Post poll that is out this morning. It shows that this is now a 1-point race in a 4-person contest. Clinton 46%, Trump 45%. And this was taken this weekend post FBI announcement. Let's go to the impact on whether about supporting for Hillary Clinton. 63% say no difference, but 34%, that's 1 in 3, say it makes them less likely to support Clinton, and there is a sizable Democratic component in that 34%. So the question, Jerry, is, does this sense that Hillary Clinton was sailing to victory here, does that go out the window now?
Well, look, I think this race was destined to tighten anyway. They always do at the end. I mean, you have undecided voters who are starting to drift toward Donald Trump a little bit anyway, because if they hadn't decided at this point, they may have already decided not to vote for her. You have some Gary Johnson voters, the Libertarian candidate. His support was shrinking, and those people look a lot more like Trump supporters than Clinton supporters. And you also have some Republicans coming home, which tends to happen late in the game anyway. So I think there was going to be some tightening. This probably increases the tightening, but you also have to say, on the other hand, that a lot of the country is already locked in one way or the other. And there may actually be a small silver lining for Hillary Clinton, that a lot of her voters were getting a little apathetic. It's all over, we've won. They're probably more motivated now. So I think in the aggregate, it's clearly not good for her. I think the extent that it impacts the race is hard to predict at this point.
Lisa, the Clinton email scandal has been going on for literally a year and a half now, and a lot of people, including myself, felt that it had already been priced into the polls. You knew how you felt about it, and that was already reflected in who you were going to vote for. Does the reopening of the FBI investigation change that?
I do, because if you look at polling after FBI Director Comey had given his press conference, 56% of voters disapproved of Comey's decision to not recommend an indictment. 60% of independents did as well, including 31% of Democrats. So I think there was this general sentiment that she kind of got away with something. But having the cover of having the FBI not recommend an indictment sort of shielded her and protected her from some of that criticism. And now that door is reopened. And if I'm Donald Trump, I'm not going to get into the nuance too much of this, because there's still a lot of lingering questions. All he has to say is the fact that we have a candidate for the first time in history facing an FBI investigation. And also, he has been on the campaign trail driving this message of draining the swamp, of corruption in government, running as the outsider. And, what better narrative do you need than this to make that point? And, to Jerry's point, I do think this helps Donald Trump, but it also helps on the down ballot races, because now Senate Republicans running in tight races don't have to be on the defense. They get to go on the offense.
Let me pick up on what Jerry was saying and Lisa. George, does this energize Trump supporters who may have been losing hope as the polls seem to be going against him? What impact does it have on people who were going to hold their nose unenthusiastically and vote for Clinton because of that and now might just stay home? And to pick up on Lisa, what impact does this have on the Republicans trying to hold on to the Senate?
Well, it could well be that by slowing whatever momentum Mrs. Clinton had, it does help the down-ballot Republicans. But it does strengthen the fundamental Trump narrative, which is burn it down, blow it up, I'm terrible, but who could be worse than the people running Washington? It's the Casey Stengel vote. Let me explain. 1962, the New York Mets are en route to losing a record 120 games. Their manager's Casey Stengel. One day he looks down at his bench and says, "Can't anyone here play this game?" And I think people look at Washington and say, no one there can play the game. And so it strengthens, in a sense, the perverse Trump message, which is, I may be awful, but what could be worse than what we got?
And why do you think it could have an impact on the Senate races?
Well, because some people can say, well, let's go out and vote for people for whom we could have some enthusiasm. Maybe a Senate candidate we like, a gubernatorial candidate.
And I suppose it also adds to the argument, if Clinton is going to be the president, that they need a check on her.
Yeah. Exactly.
Chuck, is this a potential game changer in your mind? And to get to this question, which I was talking about a little bit with Mike Pence, can Trump take advantage of it? Can he stay on script? Lisa said, he's just got to make this point, keep it simple. You've got an FBI, you've got a presidential candidate who's under FBI investigation. Can he stick to that?
In answer to that question, I would say if anybody in politics could blow this, it would be Donald Trump, because he has fumbled away so many other gifts. So yes, of course it's possible he could fumble it away. But to the first part of your question as to whether or not it's a game changer, I'm going to say a tentative no, simply because the polling on this race has been, even though the margin of Hillary's lead has been variable and it's now at a lower ebb, she's never really been behind, not since the conventions. And I think that, as you were saying before, the email thing is largely priced in, and as George pointed out, millions of people have already cast their ballots. Having said that, I think what is interesting about this is that Hillary is now trying to actually turn it into an advantage. The way she's talking about it is to cast herself as the victim of this sort of perfidious FBI director, and in effect inflame and rouse the Democratic base over this issue.
Let's pick up on that, because I'm surprised that she decided she had to address it at some, but she is, as you say, making it a kind of, as you say, that she's the victim and taking